The Phillies have changed us as fans. They really have. You got to stay tuned for today's Trending in the AM. Find out why and what I said in the DSM Media group chat that was then responded to by Dylan as, "I'm not coming at you, Phil, but," and then he comes at me. Trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front. And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms, but specifically on YouTube. Make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button, drop your comments. Even if you're watching on replay, still see the comments. I'll still try to interact with you. We got a lot to talk about today. I am Phil Stifle, your host. We got Dylan Davis sitting next to me today. And I had invited Dylan to come on because we were going to talk Sixers today. But then last night I read an article during the Sixers game because I was just bored with the Sixers game last night. I was bored with Monday Night Football last night. I was bored with Monday Night Raw last night. Bored with it all. So I'm reading an article on my phone. I shared it because while the headline was awful and while there were tones in the article that were wrong, I think deep down in the article there was some threads of truth in the article. And Dylan, when I shared the article in the group chat, preceded his comments, and there were a lot of comments in the group chat. He preceded his comment with, "Phil, I'm not coming at you, but," and then I got a 16-page novel of comments from Dylan disagreeing with this. And before we get into the specifics of the article, I want to go more general, Dylan. Good morning, Dylan. How are you today? First off,
I'm great, Phil. I'm ready. We should have did this episode last night immediately once you sent the article, but it's all right. I got it up next to you just to remind me how bad it is. Yeah, just to remind me how poorly written and bad this article is.
Okay. So first off, as the show is titled, the Phillies have changed us now. This, if you want to call it a magical run, if you want to call it whatever you want to call what the Phillies just went on, I think they've changed us as a fan base. And it's kind of good and it's kind of bad because now we want more out of our Sixers. We want more out of our Eagles. We're not going to be happy with another. Not saying we would have been happy with a second round exit for the Sixers or, a championship game loss for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. But I think it's changed us that we want more. It's reinvigorated a fan base that's just been disappointed time and time again lately with the Sixers and the Eagles. Am I right saying that this is kind of like last night I'm watching that Sixers game trying to find what's right and wrong that could get us to a title game. I was watching that Monday Night Football game to see how the Eagles stack up against the Ravens because I think it could be an Eagles-Ravens Super Bowl. I'm thinking every team now title. And I think the Phillies are why my mindset as a fan and somebody that talks about it on a daily basis has changed.
I think some of it could have to do with the fact that we didn't view them in that light a couple months ago even. So viewing them as maybe the third or fourth best team in this city and watching them, we could say overachieve or exceed expectations and get to a World Series now makes us believe even more in the teams that we thought had a pretty good shot already to reach a championship or to reach a Super Bowl with the Eagles or Sixers. Listen, look, I'm not a big Union fan. You aren't either. I watched the game and I know how much it's growing in this city and the fan base. Losing 2 championships within the span of 8 hours is pretty incredible. And I don't know a lot of other cities that go through something like that. So of course,
no city has ever done that.
Yeah, so of course, ever, like it happens here, and yet
in the history of the world,
it just makes you more raw as a fan. It makes you more. You can't get more Philadelphia than that, right? But yeah, I think that has to do with just the fact, like I said, we didn't picture the Phillies being here 3-4 months ago. So the fact that if, let's say, we had them ranked as the 4th best team in Philadelphia and they were able to exceed expectations and get to that point, why can't the Eagles, who are 8-0 and we already viewed in this light as a Super Bowl contender, championship contender, get there? Why can't the Sixers with James Harden, I know he's hurt, and Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and the bench additions get to that level we expected them to if the Phillies just did it, right? So we'll see.
The Phillies were overachievers.
Yeah.
And they got there. They got there after falling completely apart at the beginning of the season. So the Sixers, whether they're struggling or not early on this season, they're actually underachieving at this moment, even though they beat the Suns last night. We could talk about that game at some point if you want, but even them beating the Suns last night, they're underachieving at this point. So that's kind of, I expected greatness, but now because the Phillies were able to pull themselves up after being so far down, I need the Sixers to do that.
It's almost like one upping the other.
Yeah, there's got to be. Exactly. We always joke about GMs like, hey, Howie Roseman just made a trade. Well, Daryl Morey's going to make a bigger trade, steal the headlines, and then John Middleton's going to steal the headlines again. This city's always been about that, one upping the other team. And I think the Phillies really have set the tone that just mediocrity or being just close, just barely getting there and not getting there is not acceptable anymore. This city now is re-energized, and because the Phillies have made this run, more eyes are on sports in general. If the Sixers can go on a run, they beat the best team in the Western Conference last night. If they can go on a run and play like expected, that the energy from the Phillies can carry on. I don't know how much of the game you watched last night.
All of it.
But that crowd, it was timid. I mean, you were beating the Suns. Devin Booker, an MVP candidate, Chris Paul, I know he got hurt, but you were beating one of the best teams in basketball. That crowd was dead. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson rang the bell. He's like a living legend now in Philly. And there was no excitement, no juice, no jazz. The Sixers can capture some of that Phillies jazz, and it can carry over.
For sure. And I think it's not even one upping. Like it is, but it's also should be a positive reinforcement into these other teams. We talked about it week 2 of the NFL season when Bryce Harper and the guys were at the Eagles game and James Harden was sitting on the sideline Monday night when the Eagles blew out Minnesota, and that crowd was absolutely electric in the home opener. And it's like, goddamn, don't these guys want to experience this? And then you see what the Phillies just did and Red October, and that's it. The city was on fire for a month straight. The Eagles, although they get a sold out 60, 70,000, however many there are at the link every week, they know that it can get to another level the farther they exceed. The Sixers, yeah, man, you're kind of second tier right now. You're kind of third tier in this city, and you have a chance right now with the attention on you to kind of get that attention back and get back into everybody's positivity instead of just being like the joke of the city at the moment. So Joel Embiid said it last night. The season started today, right? Because now everybody's paying attention.
Last night was the first night my attention was fully on the Sixers. It really was. But really quickly, we got to backtrack a little bit. We'll get back to the Sixers if there's time. We'll see how long this conversation goes. So Dylan, you're a young baby. Young man. I'm an old man. Okay. Jack McCaffrey, he writes for the Delco Times. I've been reading him since the early 90s. He has been writing for the Delco Times since the early 90s. I've been reading his sports articles. He basically is one of the few originals, okay, that I started reading when, the daily paper would show up on my doorstep every morning, and I would read it. Check the box scores because, there was no internet, and then you read the Jack McCaffrey article on the back page. So he put out an article yesterday. Actually, I don't even know if it was yesterday. I just saw it yesterday. But he put out an article. And let me preface this by saying some things here. First and foremost, I know the headline, Dylan, is what got you all worked up to start.
It's not
a
just that.
lot of the headlines are not written by the actual writers.
That's
They're editors like that.
He goes on to be an asshat the rest of the article.
He takes himself into it further. Now, I think you need to read through the article and look past it. It's like when you're looking at one of those blurry pictures and you got to look past the initial blurriness. Then you see the image in the background. I think there's some threads here of truth. And so, guys, that Jack McCaffrey wrote an article, assuming it was yesterday. The title of the article, Underachieving, Poorly Managed Phillies Need to Be Redesigned. Now, let me tell you something. First and foremost, The reason why it caught me first, the article, was because I think it's mistimed. I think this article would get a slightly different reception if it was 2 months from now. And our wounds were still, or maybe our wounds were healed by that point. We're still licking our chops. We're still crying. We're still upset. We're still in depressed mode after almost winning the World Series. And he's going to go out there and basically tell us some truths about this team that we're not ready to admit. Dylan.
Can I go now? This article is the most ridiculous thing I've ever read in my lifetime, because time will not change the reception to this, Phil, because he goes on in this article to basically say how the Phillies have a $250 million payroll. They underachieved, struck out too often, fielded with only modest efficiency, which over the last 3 games.
First off, let's go line by line. Do they not have a $250 million payroll?
No. I get that.
They weren't underachieved by the fact that they won only 87 games and finished 14 games out
That's
of
not
first
the point.
place.
That's so.
Do they not strike out too
Time
often?
out. If this is how he feels, or if this is what he thinks, there better be another article 3 months ago that we don't know about that says even if the Phillies make the World Series, they still need to be redesigned. You don't just jump on after they lose in 6 to the best team in baseball and say that they underachieved and choked away the World Series. Not true. My point being, time wouldn't change because he says that stuff and then basically says, no, the way it is apparently being relayed is that the Phillies went on a magical run and captivated a city and played with courage. Take that lie somewhere other than the largest monopoly market in baseball. So what he's saying is fans are just happy-go-lucky that they made. No. You just said it. We're still licking our wounds. No one's happy about the way the season ended.
He never said they choked away the season. If you read the article,
he
basically says that this team wasn't as good as the Astros. And because
no shit.
Exactly. But the thing is, when you spend $250 million, you should the Astros were what, 10th in the league in payroll? The Phillies were 4th. When you spend that much money on that many elite players, they should be better. Finishing 14 games out of first place.
How much better can you be if you made? I don't care. I get it. Phil, you also have to acknowledge they went through a coaching change. They didn't have the MVP of the league for 2 months. They lost their second baseman for over a month. They lost 3 pitchers for time and time again. So what did you know? Were they supposed to win 101 games?
Dude, I'm just picturing Jason when I fire him up and his face getting all red.
The article's bad, man. it's bad. If you have a takeaway, here's the takeaway. Saying they need to be redesigned because they have flaws. that's why this free agency period, that's why this offseason is one of the biggest in Phillies history.
I think back up. See, I've been reading him for a long time. And he's kind of like what's the other guy? Marcus Hayes. Marcus Hayes and Jack McCaffrey have been writing articles in Philadelphia for 30 plus years. If you go back and read the way they wrote 30 years ago, it was totally different. He might have written the same exact article after the 93 Phillies. I don't know. I'm just saying. But in this day and age, you've got to use certain tones and certain language. It's obvious. There is definite clickbait usage of words in this article. There is no doubt about it. But I think, and Dylan, I know you disagree with this, but I think what he's trying to convey, yes, he uses some bad words, but he's trying to convey that this team wasn't properly built the right way. And this offseason, Dave Dombrowski, because we did not win, because he does go into the fact that because we didn't win, there might not be so much loyalty to keep some players and make drastic changes that this team needs to win 100 games. Don't tell me that just the manager change and Bryce Harper being healthy gets this team to 101 wins or 102 wins.
No, but my question, like that, if that's the takeaway, here's my.
That's how I'm viewing the article, as saying that this team wasn't properly built. It was misbuilt, and they realized.
I'm just confused. My only pushback to that is there better be an article 3 months ago stating, regardless of what happens, this team was always misconstructed this entire year. And there's no, how are they misconstructed if they made the World Series. Don't get me wrong. Do they have defensive flaws? Yeah, those are long-term defensive flaws.
The things that cost them this World Series, bad plate approach, defense, all these things were issues all season long. And as they got hot,
Rhys Hoskins has been here, one of the longest-term Phillies ever. That wasn't new construction.
I know. Look, I'm getting bashed for my Rhys Hoskins takes yesterday. All over.
I agree with you. And again, I'll say it on the show. I'm not coming at you, Phil. I'm just letting it out. No,
I brought this article up, dude. I don't know how your face hasn't turned red. Honestly, you wear makeup or something on the air?
Ooh, pigment. I'm not as pigmented.
Gotcha. No, look. I think what he wants people to realize in this article that this was a flawed team all year long. And we did go on a magical run. Yes. We got hot at the right moment. Yes. But those flaws got exposed in the World Series by the better team. And yes, I want Rhys Hoskins back. I think Rhys Hoskins should be back here at first base. But there's no loyalty because we won a World Series to keep Rhys Hoskins. There's no loyalty to, you know what, if somebody wanted to make a huge offer for Aaron Nola, because he's going to be so cheap on contract next year. There's no loyalty to force the Phillies to keep Aaron Nola. There's no loyalty to keep, you know, if somebody, it's not going to happen. Say somebody wants Nick Castellanos. There's no loyalty there. Yeah. Drastic changes can be made and need to be made. And then the part of the article, I know I've been very harsh on Rob Thompson. I've tried to come around on him, but he puts it out there that Rob Thompson, you know, he made mistakes, especially down the line in the World Series.
He made a big.
And you see that this is very, very similar to other times in Philadelphia sports. There isn't confidence in the front office in Rob Thompson. If there was, he wouldn't have gotten a 2-year extension.
Nah, I disagree with that.
You basically gave your interim manager one more test year. One more test year. Because you don't sign a 1-year contract, you sign a 2-year. You're never a lame duck coach, especially in baseball.
My problem with this is we need to stop moving the field goal post. So if Rob Thompson, a lot of people fell in love with Rob Thompson in the first 2 months of this summer when he took over and the team started winning, and they were like, remove the interim tag. And you and I agreed, no, not yet. Then it was, well, maybe if they make the playoffs. Then it wasn't, no, they can't just make the playoffs. Let's win a series. Just because they lost the World Series in 6, they didn't get swept. They lost in 6. Does not change his capabilities of him being the manager of this baseball team. And I know it's whether it's pandering or whatever you want to call it, it means something, Phil, when all of the guys' wives come out on the field with his face on a T-shirt and says, I ride with Philly Rob, and take a picture with. What does that mean? Their husbands, the team, and their family members love them and play for them. What you saw by them getting to the World Series.
As I talked yesterday on this show with Jason and Mark, is that love, that way that he managed this team is not going to work next year.
I disagree. Because why? No, what? Because here we are again. Because if they would have won the World Series, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But since they lost in 6, which was like, so the bar was win a World Series or flop.
That's how they lost it. So based off of what you're saying, then you should just run the entire team back next year, and we'll be just fine.
It's not what I'm saying at all. It's not what I'm saying at all. But Rob Thompson made a huge mistake. Yes, he made a huge mistake. He did not lose the clubhouse. His tactics will not be inefficient or ineffective next season because he pulled Zach Wheeler too early.
No, I'm saying his overall philosophy of, I'm taking over. You guys are 22 and 29. Nobody's counting against you, or everybody's counting against you right now. Let's just be a big family and have a good time.
How do you know that was
he's going to have to need a new message next year?
That's the philosophy that we created, that they want to play for Rob. We don't know that's how he coached them in the clubhouse, and those are the speeches he gave. And
I'm just saying that you're not wearing an I Fly with Rob shirt if he's giving a flip the tables type of speech at the end of every game.
They don't need a flip the tables guy. But we don't know that he was just like, you know what? No one thinks we'll be here. So let's just see what happens. And if we get here, great. I don't think that's how it went. I don't know, man. Listen, and I get like if for you, if it's still not a large enough sample size.
It's not a large enough sample size, that's for sure. But I'm still stuck on the fact that, people that the way you're phrasing it makes it sound like that this team with minor changes is
No,
going to be
I
right back.
never said minor changes. My
And I think
point
that's
is
what McCaffrey's article is trying to say.
no.
Major changes are still needed to get this team to the next level. You need more balanced hitters in this line. You can't have all strikeout hitters. You can't simply rely on bad defense to get to win a title.
I agree. I've never said I want one of the main four shortstops.
McCaffrey's trying to write.
No, he's not. No, he's not. Because it would have been because there would have been at least one line of just because major changes, Phil, aren't necessary. He's not sitting here saying, you know what, this is the biggest shortstop market there's ever been. There's a lot of 2 to 3 starters out there that you can go out and get. Those are the changes you're going to see. Maybe you see a trade. You trade Rhys Hoskins, and I know you're not on board for that, but you trade Rhys Hoskins, you're not getting a high-level MLB talent back to come help you right now. Nick Castellanos isn't bringing you.
I'm not reading every Jack McCaffrey article. I'm not right this second. But I'm just reading. I clicked on a link that brings me every one of his articles. He wasn't negative on this team all postseason run. He tried. Next as the Phillies bolt for Houston, they still can't be counted out. Ranger Suarez gives Phillies an ace up their sleeve. In the end, Phillies spent enough to survive an arms race. Or maybe it says, did they spend enough? I'm sorry. But he's not totally negative.
I get so that's my point. That's my point.
Is massively
it's cool to have hindsight. Hindsight's 2020, bro. So it's cool after they lose the series to say they weren't constructed correctly. Where was this 3 months ago? Where was saying to the fans, to your audience, regardless of what happens here, even if they make the World Series, this team is highly flawed and there needs to be changes to be made. Everybody's great for everybody.
There's plenty of people that have been bashing Rhys Hoskins since day one. Nick Castellanos sucks and this and that. And the third, Aaron Nola isn't this and that. People have been saying this since day one. But then we go on a magical run, and all's good. Well, when we get to game 1 of next season, and there's still flaws on this team, we're going to be going through the same process again.
But there won't be because this offseason should have a lot of positivity. Here's the problem that I texted last night. It's like the extreme left versus the extreme right. So you have what I'm not saying, but you think that I'm saying this team needs a tweak here and there and they'll be right back. No. I'm not saying that. They have work to be done this offseason. And even if they improve in the offseason, people just think that they're going to be right back in the World Series because they're better. It's extremely hard to get back. But then there's the side of like where you're on you're not saying they're not, obviously, but you're hesitant to even think they can make the playoffs. And I think that's too far to the left. Like too far to the right, it's thinking basically almost run it back and they'll be right back in the World Series. And then they're thinking, well, unless they change 8 things, they won't even make the postseason next year.
Well, let's be honest. First and foremost, it is extremely difficult to make the World Series.
I don't think enough Philly fans realize that.
It is extremely difficult to make the World Series. We agree on that. But there's very few organizations that have been having excessively long-term success making the playoffs, even. The Astros being one of them, the Braves, the Dodgers. But the Mets don't make it every year. The Brewers, they've got great players. They barely ever make it. This is the first time the Padres don't make it every year. The
you want to talk flawed. The Brewers are incredibly flawed. Their lineup is terrible.
Exactly. There's a lot of so just to assume an 87 win team with minor tweaks is just going to make it back to the playoffs next year in a division that they were third place in their division. They were 14 games behind first place. To assume that they're going to make the playoffs again next year without major adjustments is a flawed thought process. Sure. They need to make major adjustments to even contend for that. Because
but what's major adjustments? Did they sign Trey Turner and Carlos Rodon? Is that major adjustments?
That is a big step in the right direction. Absolutely. But is that enough to trim that 14-game division lead to 2 or 3?
I'll tell you this, Phil. If they don't have a managerial struggle and start 8 games, 9 games under 500, 50 games into the season, they probably win more than 90 games last year. They won 87 with that star and with all the injuries. I'm not trying to make excuses, but facts are facts. If you don't miss Bryce Harper for 2 months, you probably win an extra game or two along the line.
Game or two, sure.
All right, well, a game or two almost equates 90 wins.
That still puts them 10 games behind the Braves.
Do you know how hard it is to win 90-plus games in the MLB?
And that's why I'm saying that there's no guaranteed long-term success for this team.
But with the extra wild card, it would.
Well,
with
now
90
because
plus wins.
Now the extra wild card changes a lot of that, and we'll see over the next couple years how the numbers stack up for that and stuff like that. Excuse me. Look, I think we both agree there's flaws in the article and there's flaws in the Phillies. But I think if you can look past the words and try to get to the thought process, I just think people are misunderstanding what this article is really trying to say, and that changes need to be made if we want long-term success.
My whole response to the article is no shit. Like any Philly fan that isn't just a casual fan that's all.
And that's why I said timing is off. We're still licking our wounds. Nobody wants to admit that there's flaws on this team right now. Outside of Rhys Hoskins, nobody wants to. Everybody wants to get rid of Rhys Hoskins.
I think if you polled a decent amount of the actual Philly fan base, you would be shocked at what the response would be. Because I don't think they view it that way. Myself, like
I think if you polled 100 Phillies fans today, and then polled the same 100 Phillies fans 6 weeks from now, the results of the poll would be massively different.
I don't know, because I think enough fans realize the changes that need to be made.
Now. There's too much emotion right now.
Maybe, but I have more emotion than anyone I could imagine.
You're pissed off right now.
I can't sleep at night. I'm sleeping through the morning. I'm eating and drinking my feeling. No, I'm kidding, but
you're not kidding. Neither am I.
But like, I have logic at the same time. Like my whole point of the no shit comment was like, so you give me that article with the clickbait headline, and then you basically just trash things for three paragraphs. And then if the takeaway at the end is basically, well, they're flawed and they need improvements. Again, I don't care if it's today, in 6 months, no effing shit. And that's what this all season's for. That's why there's hype around the shortstop market for the Phillies. That's why there's drama around Carlos Rodon and other starting pitching, because guys and this fan base understand that. Bryce Harper came out literally 30 minutes after losing the World Series and told you, we will be back and we will have more with us. Yeah.
I mean, but again, in this article, there's a line. Had the 87 win Phillies not blown the 2-1 World Series lead and brushed out of Houston like annoying fleas, a parade would have been spectacular and well-deserved. Winner spoils. But it didn't happen. Yeah. So because it didn't happen, we can have these it's okay feelings that this team is actually majorly flawed over 162 games. And if you have to run back
is a different word.
Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot again and Rhys Hoskins in the 2-hole for 162 games, and Ranger Suarez is your third best pitcher, and you're running out there Zach Eflin's and Bailey Falters, this team's gonna be flawed again.
For sure. But I'm telling you, they're not running it back.
And that's all that I'm trying to say is be prepared for major changes on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Major changes. There might be a trade that's unpopular that happens. There might be. You might not get Trey Turner. Who knows? But to just think that, it's all rosy and good, I don't know. I don't feel as offended by this article as most people do. And I think that's a shame, in my opinion.
I'm offended.
I think I know what Dylan's going to do today. Dylan is going to go through the last 6,000 Jack McCaffrey articles and try to find something else.
I wouldn't waste my time.
Yeah. 30-year veteran plus of the journalist industry in Philadelphia. Probably in the Philadelphia Hall of Fame writers Hall of Fame.
Where does he write? He writes where?
Delco Times. He writes all over, but mainly from the Delco Times.
Interesting.
Says a lot about us Delco people, doesn't it? We read him for 30 plus years. All right, real quick, we got to take a pause in the action here. Today's show is brought to you by Gents Barber Lounge. Check out one of their 2 great locations in Fishtown and Old City and book your appointment today. They own the craft and it shows. Rated the #1 barbershop on Yelp in the Philadelphia area. Multiple award-winning barbers and able to handle any style cut, adult or kid. We're back here trending in the AM on DSM Media again on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Make sure you're hitting those like and follow buttons. Subscribe on the YouTube page. We greatly appreciate it. I'm your host, Phil Stiefel. We got Dylan Davis sitting here. And the real reason why I brought Dylan in was not to get him fired up and pissed off and pouring himself an alcoholic beverage at 8:30 in the morning, was to talk Sixers. Sixers took on the #1 team in the West, the Phoenix Suns, last night at home. No James Harden still. Joel Embiid back in the lineup. And surprising to me, extremely surprising to me, they won the game last night. And it didn't feel exciting, but if you really think about the game, and I know Chris Paul got hurt somewhere in the first half. I forget where in the first half.
So, yeah.
I didn't even see where he got hurt. I just heard them say he wasn't coming back out after half. Even though Chris Paul was missing for most of the second half, it should have been considered a dominant win and a big win for this team. I mean, Joel Embiid, 33 points, dominant game against a much improved center in DeAndre Ayton. And I just kind of feel after the game. And I think that goes back to part of the Phillies conversation, that the Phillies have spoiled us and the Phillies have zapped a lot of our energy. But should we get excited, Dylan, about last night's game? Because I think I should get excited about last night's game.
It's funny, like I'm not just but I do agree that like it lacked emotion for me. Like I can acknowledge that it was a big win. It was a great win for the Sixers team. I saw that a lot that I liked, but I'm not, I wasn't sitting up watching the post game show, super pumped about the win and wanting to hear about it. And I wonder, Phil, if it's not just the Phillies, but if it's going to continue for us until March and April and May, because we know that this team is going to make the playoffs. It's just what happens once they get there. And that's the same questions we've had for years. But last night, just in terms of the game and reasons to be optimistic moving forward with the Sixers, you saw a lot of things that are steps in the right direction. Like we talk about Jalen Hurts in the beginning of the year with question marks and these building blocks, check, 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 check. And with the Sixers last night, it was a win from start to finish. They played strong for 4 quarters. Mm-hmm. Phoenix had runs because it's a game of runs in the NBA, and the Sixers were up 16 and it was cut to 7. They were up 17 and it was cut to 9, and the Sixers right back extended the lead, and that's a big bigger team than the New York Knicks, who they blew that lead against on Friday night. I know Devin Booker went off in the third quarter. He scored 0 points in the fourth quarter, and they completely frustrated him in the first half. DeAnthony Melton, I know that was your favorite offseason ad. He has looked incredible. And not just, it's not the offensive side.
His defense on Booker in the fourth quarter is the word exceptional. Is that okay to use?
I think so. I think so.
You can look at, he shot poorly last night. No. So did Tyrese Maxey. Our backcourt shot 6 of 25 from our backcourt, starting backcourt last night.
Don't need it when you got the minivan.
Yeah. What do you hate? First off, sorry, on a side note, I don't mind bang, bang, George Niang. When Kate Scott says that, I don't mind it. When she calls him the minivan, it annoys me. I don't know what it is about that. I would not want to be nicknamed the minivan.
Here's the thing. I think bang, bang, George Niang, I can handle here and there if it's thrown in.
She has trimmed down her usage of it this year.
Yeah, she has. But I still feel like I hear it quite often whenever he knocks down a 3 late in a game.
Especially a game when he goes 7 to 10 from deep.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think the minivan, it's definitely overused. I just think it's funny. Like I don't know why. Maybe it's because he's slow too. He's slow and square, and it's not just the fact that he drives a minivan.
Anyway, back to the actual important parts of this game. Yeah. I mean, look, Joel Embiid hasn't played in, 3 games, which was like a week of game action. Came out a little sluggish. He didn't shoot great, but he got to the line a lot. But I still didn't feel, it might have been the layoff that did it, I still didn't feel the energy from Joel Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I feel like has been lacking all season long. And you look at the Sixers, and for the last 5-6 years now, the one person that gets you fired up and energized about the team in the darkest of moments or the highest of highs is Joel Embiid. And I have not seen once this year that let's go, pump up the crowd, hand to the ear cup like Allen Iverson. I haven't had one of those moments. And last night you're beating the Phoenix Suns, the best team in basketball.
Pretty handily.
And pretty handily, honestly. And I love that you brought up the fact that the Suns went on their runs and we were able to stop those runs. We never gave that lead. I don't think we gave up. I don't know when they took the lead in the first quarter.
Yeah, I don't think they gave it up.
We had a lead. We never gave that lead up. We held on to it every time. And those were when the Suns have to call a timeout because we make a big bucket after one of their runs. That's a moment for Joel Embiid to show some fire, some energy, pump the crowd up a little bit. We didn't get that once from him. And it could be partly the energy level because of him just coming back from sitting for a few days. But it doesn't take, conditioning to fire up a crowd.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's still something missing with Joel Embiid there.
Last night is, like you said, you bring up the illness in his first game back and how Doc basically said after the game it was up to Joel, really. Doc only had to grab him and put him in at the end of the game when Phoenix made their last run to stop it because Joel subbed himself out and got up when he was ready to go back in because of his conditioning. But it's definitely something you notice from the start of the season. I haven't seen it either in them. And it's worrying. I texted Scotty about it last night because I saw one of the NBA Twitter accounts tweeted it that Pompey, I don't know if he wrote an article, but a tweet, but basically about Joel's energy and how he's kind of handling the two-man game of him and Harden, and he hasn't looked enthusiastic with Harden on the floor or whatever. You know what, man? And it's, Pompey has had some articles and stuff, and
why don't you bash that article? Don't bash
that isn't so true. But I can tell you with my own two eyes, I've seen the lack of energy, the lackadaisical play, the unenthusiastic Joel. And I'm tired of it if it continues. Again, last night, I'll give you the pass, but you better start seeing it because it's been the same. If there's been one consistent problem with Joel Embiid in an area he hasn't really improved on, it is that I don't want to call it ego, but it is that personality of sometimes he is the funniest dude on the planet. He's firing the crowd up. He's giving you the chop when he's on the ground. He's into it. And the next night, even if they're winning or losing, the body language is terrible. He's not smiling. He's not doing anything. And it pisses me off, man. It really does because it's the same problem he's had for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, Scotty said it in the group chat a few weeks ago. He's mopey.
Yeah.
And I never thought, he is, let's be honest, James Harden, whatever, Tyrese Maxey, whatever. This is Joel Embiid's team. We go as far as Joel Embiid takes us. And if he is disinterested and unmotivated, you're looking at another first round or second round exit for this team.
Phil, look how important he was defensively last night. Look how dominant the Sixers were as a team last night defensively, and how many shots he affected or blocked at the rim last night, or disencouraged people from stepping in the lane last night. When he's locked in on that side of the ball, this is a different team.
Absolutely. I mean, even the turnover aspect of it.
Yeah.
He only committed 3 turnovers last night, but 2 of them were in the first 30 seconds of the game. Just him, still getting back into the flow of the game.
Putting the ball on the floor.
But yet still I feel disinterested, or I feel mopey because Joel Embiid feels mopey. You've got all the eyes on you right now. This is on you to energize this team, this fan base, this crowd. And I do think there's something to the fact that it's just get to the playoffs now. The NBA is kind of almost rendered the regular season useless, and getting a top 4 seed or a top 3 seed isn't as important as it used to be in the NBA. I do think that that's part of the issue.
We've lived it, man. We got the unattainable 1 seed a couple years ago. It ran through. I said we've lived it. We got the unattainable 1 seed a few years ago. It ran through Broad Street. Still ended in a 7-game second round exit.
Exactly. So I don't know, but there are still signs of positive. I actually want to bring up another sign. That's something that concerns me a little bit. And I said it before that I wanted to see Tyrese Maxey being the number 2 scorer on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Even this was before Harden went down, before anything. And you've got an opportunity with James Harden out now for a month, and now 2 games into it, I think. You see Tyrese Maxey still like you should see a different Tyrese Maxey without James Harden out there. He is the number 2 guy. He is the main. Maybe is there any concern that Tyrese Maxey might be hitting a wall this year at some point?
I don't no, I still
I'm
think
not sure how to phrase my thoughts.
I get what you're saying. Like,
I expected him to take another jump.
Right?
This
Is
year.
that jump going to be severely limited?
I just see the pretty much the same exact Tyrese Maxey as last year.
I look at it this way: post Harden in the last 2 games, and obviously the first one without Joel as well. I know Maxey scored over 30. I think he scored 33, but he shot really poorly. And that was another thing. He shot really poorly last night. I think he scored like 11 or 12 points. So I'll kind of chalk it up as that for last night. Like he was aggressive. He got into the lane. He tried to finish through contact. He pulled up a couple threes. None of them fell for him, and he wasn't getting calls in the lane. So, just a bad shooting night, I guess.
So I just pulled it up to kind of do this. So his free throw percentage is 10% down for over his career.
He missed back-to-back last night. I saw that.
Yeah. And his 3-point percentage is like 1% up over his career numbers, but his overall field goal percentage is down, and his free throw percentage is massively down this year.
Mm-hmm.
Compared, which was one of the concerns about Tyrese Maxey coming out of college, was it wasn't his ability to get to the basket, it was his shooting. And so it does slightly concern me that, not that he's hitting a wall per se, but we all got hyped that he was putting in all this work in the offseason and he was going to be even better. And now with James Harden out, you need him to be even better, and he's not.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair to look at and see how things kind of transpire. James is going to miss over a month, dude. So you got a long time, and this stretch coming up, you got Atlanta twice. You got Utah, who's supposed to stink, but somehow they're playing really good basketball. You got Milwaukee again. I think you got Brooklyn coming up. So the schedule is not easing up. So it's time for him to not only start shooting better, because you're going to need that. You can't have 3 for 12 shooting from the field Tyrese Maxey, right? But just kind of taking control of the offense, because now he is the point guard, man. He is the guy to set things up. He is the guy to go and take control of the game, and kind of feed the big fella and then take over. So I think this month is incredibly huge to kind of see, Phil, what you're saying. Like, I get it's a long season, but to see where it transpires this month.
Because I think if Tyrese Maxey could take that next jump, Joel Embiid missing time and then coming back after a long, absence, can kind of change the flow of the team when he comes back.
For sure.
James Harden, when he comes back, if Tyrese Maxey takes that offensive jump, it won't be hard to integrate James Harden back in, because he doesn't mind being the distributor. He doesn't mind, the dirty work. D'Anthony Melton just slides back to the bench to being the number 1 option off the bench. If it was something else with Joel Embiid missing a month, that's different, because he's a big man and he plays a different role in the offense. But missing James Harden won't really change it. So you need Tyrese Maxey to develop that confidence, because I've been talking about it since middle of last season, that I wanted to see more Tyrese Maxey with Tobias Harris when they split up the stars versus Joel Embiid, James Harden, because I don't want to say he's scared, but he's hesitant he always defers to the other star. This is his moment without James Harden there to not have to defer. So I want to see that aggression from him and succeed at it, because when James Harden comes back, if Tyrese Maxey's a more confident player, then that just makes that backcourt even more dangerous.
I agree, and I'm interested to see how Maxey continues to play along Joel as the 1 and 2. Like, if we can sit here, and I know it's another level with the ball handler and the scorer and the passer that James Harden is, right? But if we can have a 2-man game with James Harden, hell, we had a 2-man game with JJ Redick and Joel Embiid. We had a 2-man game with Seth Curry and Joel Embiid. Pretty sure you can run a little 2-man game with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid to whatever extent you want to. So, like, interested to see not only how aggressive he stays and not just playing second fiddle to Joel and deferring, but just kind of how he works with Joel on the floor in the half court as well. Now that's where the 3-pointer continues to come into play because you need shooters around the perimeter when Joel's on the floor, obviously, and he can be one of them. But yeah, man, I do think it's incredibly important for him to. We're not saying take a leap, but just to kind of look like you did in the second half of last season in the absence of James Harden, where Tyrese Maxey's averaging 20 plus. Tyrese Maxey's not turning the ball over. He's shooting efficiently. And then I think
it'll be interesting because the next 2 games are against the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks have 2-star guards.
In the backcourt, yeah.
There'll be a lot of eyes on the backcourt in the next 2 games.
Yeah.
Against Trae Young and Dejounte Murray. So it'll be really interesting to see how he matches up because let's be honest, Dejounte Murray also is a very long.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they do defensively, right? Because like you would assume Melton would take the more efficient, like the better scorer in Trae Young, but when you're talking size and quickness,
exactly.
I don't think Maxey can guard Dejounte Murray.
You would think that Murray would guard,
Melton.
Tyrese Maxey. Well,
yeah.
I would say Maxey because he's the more efficient scorer.
Right.
I don't know. I'll be really curious Thursday to see how it goes Thursday. And I think it's Thursday and Friday, or is it Thursday and Saturday?
I think it's Thursday and Saturday because there's a travel. I know they're in Atlanta and then they're back at home in Philly.
That's right. All right, I want to transition. We got about 15 minutes left in the show. I want to talk a little Eagles too. I want to get it all in today because of this whole Phillies theory and how they changed us as a fan base. The Eagles are 8-0 going into week 10 here. The Eagles are still the only undefeated team. The Bills just lost. So my whole point of today, I might do again, to the Jets, mind you. The Eagles are, I think, again, solidified as the class of the NFL. And if this comes down that Josh Allen has a torn UCL, which there's a chance, we're waiting on the results there. It's another excuse why the Eagles aren't the best. They're just going to say, well, the Bills lose games because Josh Allen is hurt. That's just going to be another excuse. My whole thread today I'm going to be tweeting a lot about is that, in my opinion, at this moment, the Super Bowl is shaping up to be a battle of 95, a battle of the birds, the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Baltimore Ravens. Watched a little bit during commercials and halftime of that Monday Night Football game. The Ravens, offensively, it's just Lamar Jackson. That's all there is. And Mark Andrews. They've got no running backs. They've got no wide receivers. But they seem to win. They've got a great defense. And it's the battle of 95. It's the battle of the birds. And it's a battle of which running quarterback is going to get the bigger contract extension in the offseason. Am I even remotely close to thinking it could be an Eagles-Ravens Super Bowl?
There's always a chance, right? Like we view the Eagles as the best team in the NFC, and kind of the road goes through them. Yeah. But I just mean in terms of getting to the Super Bowl, we have the Eagles at the top of their conference, and the Ravens definitely have a chance. I think that their defense is very good, but I think it starts with their front seven. I think their secondary got a favor last night on national television going against Andy Dalton and the beat up Saints offense skill position wise. So I think that their secondary has some issues against a Buffalo Bills team, against a Kansas City Chiefs team, but there's definitely a chance, a pretty good chance, I would say, too. I want to give it a small percentage. There's a decent shot that could be the Super Bowl. And I'm going to be honest with you, Phil, I would love nothing more.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that.
I would love a Lamar Jackson versus Jalen Hurts Super Bowl.
I'd just love it from an Eagles point of view.
Well, just because the Eagles are in the Super Bowl.
No, well, and also I think that the Eagles would win pretty easily.
So the Bills, if Josh Allen is out, that pretty much takes the Bills.
Oh yeah,
I think Matt Barkley is their number 2.
Oh, they're forget about it. He is like,
is he still their number 2?
I don't know if he is or not. I'd have to check, but my Lord, like we sit here and say like the Ravens, for instance, they're Lamar Jackson show, right? He does everything. It's the Josh. Like I know they have more skill. They have Stephon Diggs, right? They have skill position guys. It's all Josh Allen. It all runs through Josh Allen. It runs through his legs. It runs through his big arm and his big playability, right? He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You take that away, I don't care if you still have Stephon Diggs. You're starting to lose ball games. Yeah,
absolutely. So going back to the Eagles, though, and going to the NFC, because you're saying they're the class of the NFC, they should be the forefront, option to make the Super Bowl.
By the way, it shouldn't be a conversation. For anybody that thinks that there's a conversation to be had,
I'm not gonna have it with
you could talk to that wall behind me. Like, I don't know what you want to discuss.
No, But if there is a team, I mean, in my opinion, I mean, you look at this, you look at the schedule for the Eagles. This week, Monday Night Football against Washington might be their biggest test in the next 3 to 5 weeks. I mean, the Titans, it's basically stop Derrick Henry, you stop the Titans. The Packers, I mean, Aaron Rodgers might be done before the season's over. In my opinion, there's a chance that they move on. He's losing it there. I mean, the Colts just Saturday. Tell me you had that on your bingo card. I mean, seriously.
The Colts just side note, the Colts may be the worst run organization in the NFL.
No wonder they burn through quarterbacks. No one wants to stay there. No one wants to play there.
My God.
You're wasting Jonathan Taylor's, prime right now.
Then the owner called the GM a winner. Huh?
Yeah. That GM. Well, I mean, we used to think that Howie had dirt on Jeffrey
Jeff.
Lurie. Yeah, maybe he's got some dirt.
Maybe
on
we
Jim
don't have
Irsay.
it so bad over here.
It wouldn't be surprising if somebody had some dirt on Jim Irsay. Let's just be honest.
Probably.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he's got multiple DUIs and multiple other minor arrests. But in the NFC, is there any team that maybe the Cowboys, maybe the Vikings. Is there any team that really scares you that could challenge the Eagles for supremacy in the NFC?
If fully healthy, the San Francisco 49ers are the only team that kind of give me some
pause.
Some pause for concern, because I think they match up so incredibly well with the Eagles. Mm-hmm. I think if their defense is fully healthy, they might have the best defense in the entire league. Mm-hmm. We're just getting started with the CMC edition, and Debo missed last game. So if you have Debo and Kittle and CMC and Ayuk, and again, it's Jimmy G, right? So we're all just waiting for that shoe to drop. But if he just manages a ball game, they're a very, very good team. Now, I'm not saying that wins you a Super Bowl, but I mean, if they met in an NFC divisional round, that could be a team that I'm like, ooh, I don't really love this matchup. Outside of that, Minnesota 7-1. We all know what happened week 2. The Cowboys, Dak's back, so it's not the same team.
But still,
don't care.
Does a Mike McCarthy led Cowboys even with Dak? Does it really are you scared? When
that receiving core is a joke. They already need Odell Beckham Jr.'s help. Maybe you shouldn't have traded Amari Cooper for a bag of beans. Yeah. So I don't care about them. The Rams and the Bucks, that slugfest that we just watched the other day, I could not give less of a damn about. And who knows, man, right? Give me 2 more months, and maybe Tom has turned the tide there in Tampa, and I have a different tone. But as of right now, I don't care about either.
They're 4-5, and they're still in the playoffs at this point.
And Green Bay, I would pray to God somehow makes the playoffs and gets to us, because that would just be the easiest.
I used to think that the Packers game against the Eagles was going to be the toughest challenge on our schedule.
Yeah, me too.
Not anymore.
Remember the road we had of Green Bay, Indianapolis, and Tennessee in a row? We were like, oh,
that was the tough. I had them losing all 3 games before the season in that stretch.
That could be tough.
They might win all 3 of those games.
That's easily 2-1.
So what is? I mean, the Eagles. I think more people. Why won't the Eagles get the people out there, the fans, the analysts nationally give the Eagles respect? I know they haven't beaten any juggernauts of a team, but in this mediocre NFL, where you've got 4 and 5 teams leading the division, you've got a Geno Smith-led Seahawks at 6-3 leading their division. You've got so many 5 and 3 and 4. Have you
seen the NFC South division?
It's pathetic, and yet because we haven't beaten anybody, we still beat everybody. I don't understand why we can't get some respect.
I can't even take that argument seriously, Phil, because the Eagles have more wins against teams over 500 than the Bills and the Chiefs do. So what? Because the Bills and the Chiefs played each other already, and it was a great game, that those two were the class of the league, because the Eagles haven't played either one of them. So difficult
to go 8-0. It's like, I don't care if you're the Buffalo Bills
never happened in franchise history.
It's so difficult. Like, on any given Sunday, anybody could beat anybody. That's why you see so much average records at this point in the season. To go 8-0 is so unbelievably tough.
By the way, and only 2 of those games were decided by 3 points or less.
Yeah.
The rest were all by 6 or 7 plus, 8 plus.
Some double digits, yeah. Look, I think I don't know what it's going to take to get that respect for the Eagles.
It won't,
Maybe
'cause there's no one on the schedule that would
right.
do that for them.
I was saying maybe a loss and then going on another run of 5 or 6 wins. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take. But there is a chance that this team's 10, 11, 12 and 0 and they're still at the point where people are saying the Bills are better, the Chiefs are better, the Cowboys are better, whatever it may be.
The Cowboys are the NFC. Any team in the NFC argument is what makes me laugh, because the Eagles have already beaten those two teams, right? Like, and what's the argument? Well, Dak's back. Well, you told me they were going to lose to Dallas even without Dak, so
You were telling me that
your
Cooper Rush
opinion's
was
irrelevant.
you told me Cooper Rush was going to take over as the starting quarterback
Right?
now.
Yeah, exactly.
So good, and then you changed it in one day to Dak's back now.
Yeah. The thing is, I remember, what was it? It wasn't last year. It was 2 years ago. What? When the Pittsburgh Steelers started out like 11-0, 10-0, and I didn't give them respect. But the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger was a shell of
the guy
Hall
was
of
held
Fame
together by
Ben
duct tape
Roethlisberger.
at that point.
And it was they were surviving week after week in spite of him. Like,
Totally
this isn't what the
different
Eagles are doing.
Yeah. No.
They're not surviving anybody.
They're just dominating everybody
Yeah.
on both sides of the ball. And you know what's crazy? The Eagles are 8-0, and they're getting no respect.
I love it at this point.
They have not played a complete game yet.
No.
This team is just starting.
The Texans game
away.
wasn't complete. It was what, tied at halftime?
Just chip away a little bit.
Yeah.
They are so close to being even more dominant than they currently are. The NFL has no idea what's going to happen if the Eagles play a complete game.
Did you know that the Eagles have scored more second quarter points this year than 5 or 6 NFL teams have scored all season long?
Yeah, absolutely. It's insane. But just imagine if they properly pass block for Jalen Hurts.
Mhm.
If the defense can actually get home on a consistent basis with their pass rush.
If they don't let up that one little stupid drive against Davis Mills or somebody.
There's so many moments that you could say that there's just certain little things that could be better.
Mhm.
It's
Always room for improvement.
There's always room. If they can actually score in the third quarter consistently,
Yeah.
instead of it being a close game in the fourth quarter, we might be up 30 in some of these games, and we're still 8-0. And it just breaks my heart the lack of respect this Eagles team gets. It should be today, and I'm gonna see what it looks like after I submit it to KC and everybody across the internet. When I put my power rankings out there, everybody tells me I shouldn't have the Eagles number 1. Well, they're going to be number 1 again this week. There's no doubt about it. How much respect or how much bashing I take for my power rankings this week.
It'll be interesting to see how we do this.
Because now that the Bills lost again. That's the thing. You want to tell me a one-loss Bills team because Josh Allen is better than Jalen Hurts? I don't buy it, but not that Jalen Hurts isn't better.
Right.
I mean,
what about a 2-loss to the Jets Bills team with an injured Josh Allen?
Are those people still going to say the Bills are better than the Eagles and should be ranked higher than the 8-0 Eagles? Because they shouldn't.
Well, they also don't know what power rankings mean either. Power rankings are fluid week to week, by the way. So
power rankings are fluid week to week opinions.
Yeah.
Opinions, nothing else, just opinions. Yeah. I can't take it sometimes.
No,
the comments I get online when I post them. Anyway, I think we're going to wrap this up for the day right there. Jack McCaffrey, great article. Come on the show anytime. I would love to hear you and Dylan go at it. I'll moderate you and Dylan going at it.
He wouldn't like it very much. I'd be respectful. I'm not gonna
be respectful. I would never doubt if you would be disrespectful, I would instantly do this and mute your ass right on the show.
He comes on and be like,
I would be
first question, Jack. What were you thinking when you wrote this article?
No, you'd be like, first question, why are you such an idiot?
Yeah. I'm kidding.
Hey, Jack McCaffrey's a legend. A legend. Just so you know. Anyway, Trending the AM, make sure you like, follow, subscribe on all social media platforms. Make sure you head over to the DSM Media YouTube page, even if on replay. Hit that like button, the subscribe button, drop your comments and your thoughts on today's episode, on all the different conversations we had. Make sure you shoot Dylan a follow at DylanJD98. I am Phil Stiefel. Everybody have a great day. We'll be back tomorrow. As always, 8:30 a.m.
And Philadelphia has it.